It has been wonderful coming here and working with the dolls and seeing the school today. I got to really spend a good chunk of the afternoon with the students. And as a parent, right, I have an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a kindergartner who's 7, or almost 7. And as I went through the day, right, it really struck me. And I know this because I have, between working at schools, consulting for schools, doing accreditation for schools, I have seen dozens of schools. And every school has certain things that are the same, right? They all have to teach math, they all have to teach English, or language and reading, they all have to teach those subjects or they wouldn't stay open very long, parents would move their children out. What makes a difference is the way that the staff cares for the children. What makes the difference is the atmosphere and the culture that exists in an individual school. And this school has a very special, I would almost say unique culture in the way that it interacts and cares for children, to the point where if it wasn't so cold, this is the place I would want to send my children. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what curriculum is overall, and then we'll talk to you specifically about the curriculum that we are putting together here for the school. Curriculum, in its largest sense, in its truest sense, refers to everything that happens in a school. It is the way your child gets greeted in the morning. It is the way that they have set up how they transition from one part of the day to the next part of the day. And it also includes the components of how is my child going to read, how is my child going to learn to do math, how is my child going to interact with his or her peers, right? What kind of rules, what kind of policies are going to be set up. All of that is a big part of curriculum. So the standards are, what is it that we expect the student to know, to be able to do, to value at the end, right? So if we ask ourselves, at the end of 8th grade, what do we want a student who is graduating from here to know in terms of content, to be able to do in terms of their skills, and to value, to believe in, to treat each other, right? And examples that you may be familiar with are the Common Core, right, which is a national set of standards, and the Wisconsin Model of Early Learning Standards, and we have looked at and taken those into account, and I'll talk more about that when we get to the specific standards that we are putting into place. But we have used those as a baseline as we begin to grow what we are doing here. And so you see, right, the Hickory Hill Academy will have standards that are unique, innovative, and a higher caliber than the national and state standards. Objectives, right? In the hierarchy, what we are doing is we are narrowing down, right, what we want them to know, right? So these are the goals and the outcomes, and again, I'll give you a second. The most important part of objectives is that they have to be measurable, right? They have to be observable. So anyone, a parent, another educator, should be able to walk into a room and say, I can see that students can clearly acquire this skill and then perform it. I see that students know whatever the content is because they are able to share it. And methodology is really important because it's how you do things, right? And as we said before, one of the components that is so wonderful here is how they do things, the way they speak with their students, the way they get down to their level as they engage with them. A variety of ways. It's not the same thing every day, right? I don't know about any of you. I had an occasional teacher who you could know what time it was in that class by what activity the teacher was having us do, right? That's not the way education is done anymore, fortunately, and it's not the way teachers are doing education here. There is a schedule, right? You know what's going to happen over the course of the day. That's important for students this age. But it's not the same exact activities over and over again. And that leads us to depth of knowledge. Right? There's really 4 different depths that we try to get students to understand and be able to do things at. And I'll go through them briefly. The lowest level, the first level of depth of knowledge, is really recall, right? And the example I like to give is, we go and we get a phone number, Other than the area code, there's really no rhyme or reason to that phone number unless you have requested something, right? The only way to do it is to memorize it or put it in your cell phone, and now we don't remember any phone numbers, right? That's what happens. But there's no rhyme or reason to your phone number unless you get really lucky or you asked for something and got it. And so there are things in this world that we just have to memorize. And so, but that is the lowest level of knowledge. Next level is application. How am I able to organize this information? How am I able to classify or relate to this information in a meaningful way? Third level, analysis. Am I able to construct something with this information? Am I able to take it and build something bigger based on the information and the skills that I've learned? And finally, at the highest level, we really want augmentation, assessment, synthesis, right? Design. What will a graduate look like? If we're talking about somebody who's been here 11 years, right? From the time they were, how young do you take them? 18 months? Younger.
6 weeks, if they want
6
to.
weeks.
Yeah.
From 6 weeks until they are 14 years old, right? What should they come out knowing, thinking, loving, doing? There's knowledge, like we said. Graduates will be knowledgeable. They'll have mastered skills, behaviors, and gain knowledge that is 2 to 2.5 grade levels above the national average. They'll have the ability to use these skills in real-world contexts. We want students to be able to apply what they've learned, and we believe, compared to their public school peers, that they will be approximately 2 to 2.5 grade levels above by the time they reach 8th grade. I will tell you that I went into, like I said, the kindergarten class today. I had several of the students read to me, and their reading level is already well above what you would expect a kindergartner in the middle of the year to be able to accomplish. So we're already well on our way into that task. Self-awareness, right? We want graduates who are self-aware. They know themselves. They're aware of their strengths and accept their weaknesses as opportunities. Empathy, so important in this day and age. Right? Graduates will recognize and accept not only their own feelings, but the feelings of others. They work to understand others' feelings and to better understand others. Something that many of us feel might be missing in society today is a level of empathy where you can really understand where somebody else is coming from and be able to relate to them, even if you disagree with them. Critical thinking. They don't just look for the easy answer. Graduates will have learned the skills they needed to think deeper, to find solutions that are out of the box. So often we hear about students who want to be spoon-fed the answer. Well, I don't know, just tell me the answer, right? That's what Google teaches us. That's what it is to have a smartphone in your pocket. But the reality is, it's not what employers want. It's not what society needs. Society needs people who can think critically. Yes, you can find that recall answer in your phone. Now take the information and apply it in a meaningful way to a problem that exists. Compassion. We don't just want them to lead, and we do want them to be leaders, but we want them to do it compassionately. Graduates take into consideration the thoughts, needs, and feelings of those around them. I mean, it's one thing to be a leader and to have people follow you, whether it's a popularity issue, whether it's on a sports team, whatever it may be. The idea that you can care about those whom you are leading can make a significant difference, not just in your life, but in their lives as well. Confidence. Thanks to their knowledge and their strong foundation and leadership skills, Hickory Hill Academy graduates are confident in themselves and their abilities. Right? The ability to move on, whether it's into high school or beyond, and be confident in yourself as a person, be confident in your knowledge, and be able to share that with others, I believe is invaluable. And finally, we want them to be a leader. Hickory Hill Academy graduates will be leaders. They'll be able to comfortably lead others in all aspects of their lives. And again, as Matt said, it can be a leader in your local community, it could be a leader in the state, it could be a leader in your church or whatever institution you're involved in. It can be a national leader. So, how do we get there? Well, there are three components. Rigorous and detailed academics, innovative social-emotional components, and fun, interesting, challenging programs that encompass the academic and the social-emotional skills. We're going to talk about those three parts. So the academic curriculum, again, as we said, is going to be a challenging curriculum. It is something that we've seen students are able to do, and we know this is true of all children everywhere. When you set the bar high, they will reach for it. If you set the bar low, they'll reach for that. So why not set it high? And why not say, we can get them there, or at least darn close, and then we'll be able to really see what they're capable of. I don't think there can be anything more important these days than the social-emotional components, the social-emotional lessons that our students learn. And when we look at one component, one example, right, it's grit. Grit, or perseverance as it's sometimes known, right, is a necessary quality. The ability to fail at something and go back and do it again, or change what you're doing to try to get a different result, is critical. So how do you teach that? How do you teach kids to persevere? And the answer is, you set them up at first with small goals, and when they don't quite reach it, you encourage them to try again, and change, right, and adapt until they've reached that goal. And then as they get older, you give them slightly larger goals that either extend over more time or are more difficult. And at the end of the day, you find that they have learned and internalized for themselves that through hardship, through setbacks, that when they finally are successful, they actually are more pleased with themselves and more proud of themselves than if they had gotten it just the first time around easy. Right? And then the third thing, as I said, is the methodology. Right? So, as we said in curriculum basics, the methodology includes everything. It's the way you do it. Right? It's the way that the school goes about doing things. And we're going to break that up a little bit. So the first piece is that it's going to be interdisciplinary. And that means that it doesn't have to be just math right now. Right? It's possible to have science and math and language and social-emotional all going on within the same lesson. And it's not that students get confused, it's that it's the way life really is. Right? Very rarely does somebody walk up to you and say, I just need you to add 2 numbers. Right? Instead, they come up to you with a problem. Right? We have a problem at work, and it involves people, and it involves numbers, and it involves solving things, and it's big, and it's complicated, and it's messy, because that's the way life is. And so the ability to look at that and work on that as a whole allows them to prepare for real life while looking at all of these components. We use an inquiry-based method, right? Which means that we ask a lot of questions, and we encourage students to ask a lot of questions. I would argue no questions should be out of bounds, because that's the way we learn, right? If you're afraid to ask a question, you're not ever going to learn that. So ask, find somebody who can find the answer. And if the teacher doesn't know, I truly believe the teachers here will say, I don't know, but let's find somebody who does. Right? Good project-based learning is focused on a problem, a societal problem. Right? So for instance, there's a driving question. The driving question could be, do we have enough shade on the playground? I saw a school that did this. It was a great project. Do we have enough shade on the playground? So the first thing they had to do was go out and measure how much shade there was at different points during the day, because the sun moves. Right? So they had to learn about astronomy. They had to learn about measurement. They had to learn about boundaries. Then they went and they talked with professionals. And they said, how much shade should there be? Right? How much sun should there be? And it's the kind of project that kids come out of 2 weeks down the road, and they've learned a whole set of real skills, and they are able to apply those, again, to something else later on. And so in summary, okay, while each of these 3 research-based and effective methodologies is excellent on its own, teachers will be free to apply them where they are most effective. In other words, there isn't just one right way to teach, and we know that. What we want is we want teachers to have the flexibility to say, I want to use this method because I think it is going to be the most effective in getting students to understand what it is we want them to know, or to be able to do, or to value. And so I want to share with you one way that we really stand apart from other schools. We talked a little bit about Common Core standards, we talked a little bit about Wisconsin standards, and as I said before, those are really the baseline for what we took. Okay? And so if you look here, we use the writing domain as our classic example, and you can see that here it says students will write and speak opinions about a text, supplying a reason for their opinion. Okay? And so we wanted to point out that there are active, measurable verbs here, right? The standards are written using active and measurable verbs. In this standard, students will write and speak. If you look over here, these are the Common Core standards that are there, right? For kindergarten and for first grade. And you will see that these incorporate the ones that are Common Core, but go well beyond. Now we get to the fun part. Extracurriculars, special programs. Right? In addition to advanced academic curriculum and the social emotional component, there are the extracurriculars. Languages, we'll continue Spanish and Mandarin. Mindfulness, the ability to sit down and really introspect, which is so critical to knowing who you are and where you can be in your own life and how to interact with others. Daily physical education. Research shows when students move, their blood moves. When their blood moves, more oxygen goes to the brain. When more oxygen is in the brain, students learn better. So actually getting up and moving helps them learn better. Cooking, one of my favorite subjects. I don't think that's enough said. Yoga, which is a great part of a healthy lifestyle. And gardening, the ability to really interact with the earth and the ground and understand where things come from, right?